What is good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Raider Alex back with yet another video for you guys. Anybody that's new to the channel, you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, let's jump right into the topic of this video. The start of the 2024 regular season for the Las Vegas Raiders has been very disappointing, as the team now sits with a 2-6 record throughout 8 weeks of the regular season. And with the NFL trade deadline being right around the corner, I thought this was a good time for the Raiders to seriously consider some potential moves to make before the trade deadline. But we just got a breaking report from Vic Tafur and Tashan Reed of The Athletic, and they have reported that the Raiders, it seems like they plan to stand pat and not make any major moves before the trade deadline on November 5th. Vic Tafur and Tashan Reed reported that the Raiders don't view their situation as a full-scale teardown, and that the team believes they could become competitive in 2025 with a strong offseason. Very interesting report. I was very intrigued to see what the Raiders were going to do ahead of the trade deadline, and another reason for that too is because I feel like whatever type of direction this team was going to go ahead of the trade deadline, it could give us an indication of the potential job security of our head coach, Antonio Pierce. I thought if we're going to be big sellers, if we're going to move a lot of pieces for future draft capital, then more than likely that would have told me that Antonio Pierce had a decent amount of job security if they're going to trade away current talent for future draft picks, more than likely indicating that Mark Davis did assure him that he will be here next season. But if the Raiders chose to not make any major moves, then that could indicate that his job security is not for certain, and that he really is kind of playing for his job the rest of the regular season. Now, speaking on whether or not the Raiders should have been sellers at the trade deadline, I mean, realistically, let's be honest, the Raiders' chances for any type of postseason aspirations are absolutely cooked at this point, being 2-6. And if we're being honest, this team is just not a good football team. And that's why, I was gonna get ready to make a video today stating why I thought the Raiders should be big sellers ahead of the trade deadline. And I really thought they should have geared themselves up to have the most draft capital possible heading into a huge offseason where they will need to retool this roster. I mean, the Raiders already went ahead and traded away our best offensive weapon in Davante Adams for a conditional third-round pick. But some of the other guys that were being named and mentioned as potential trade targets was our other wide receiver, Jakobi Meyers, our left tackle, Kolton Miller, John Jenkins, guys like that, veterans that may have some trade value. And to start, let's talk about Jakobi Meyers. Jakobi Meyers was signed to a 3-year, $33 million contract back in the 2023 offseason under Josh McDaniels' regime. And the thought process was very simple with that hiring. He was a player who was very familiar with the Josh McDaniels offense. And we all saw that throughout his time as a coach, he would always prioritize players with experience in that New England Patriots style offense. And Jakobi Meyers had himself a super solid season last year in 2023. Jakobi Meyers had 807 yards, 8 touchdowns last season, and so far in 2024 he has racked up 325 yards on 31 catches and 2 touchdowns. And personally, I feel like Jakobi Meyers is a super solid wide receiver 2 for a roster, but he's definitely not a true number 1 outside wide receiver. And I don't really see him surpassing the performance he had last season, because I think a big reason for his success, especially early in the season, was due to the familiarity that he had with the offense. And moving forward, the Raiders, especially if they choose to go in a different direction, the offensive scheme and offensive coordinator, and hopefully they do that. Hopefully at some point they end up firing Luke Getsy in the near future. And if that's the case, whoever our new offensive coordinator will be, Jakobi Meyers may not be the best fit for this roster. And really, with him being on a 3-year contract, if we're not going to move on from him this year, this is really our only opportunity to do so, to move on from him and potentially get some type of, day 3 draft pick, because next year is going to be the final year of his contract. If we don't trade him now, I don't necessarily see us trading him in the offseason, but I guess that's always a possibility. Now, one thing to consider though is that the wide receiver market has not been great, as, star wide receiver like Davante Adams went for a 3rd-round pick. Amari Cooper also went for a 3rd-round pick. So if we were looking to move Jakobi Meyers, you were more than likely going to get like a 4th, possibly even a 5th-round pick. So it wasn't going to be great compensation, but at the same time, a 4th or 5th-round pick is nothing to shrug off completely. you can definitely get good players on day 3 of the NFL draft. And most importantly, I just feel like if Jakobi Meyers, especially if we're going to go in a different direction, the offensive side of the football, more than likely I think we already seen the best production out of him. I thought it was definitely a good idea to try to move him, try to get like a 4th round draft pick, and then maybe you can kind of gear up in the offseason with the money you save from not paying Jakobi Meyers. Maybe you can try to gear up and sign a guy like T. Higgins. You can also draft a wide receiver, which is something I definitely want to do regardless. But, very interesting because a couple days prior to all this, Dan Graziano for ESPN made a report looking that the Raiders could be looking to trade Jakobi Meyers, John Jenkins, and even mentioned Cody Whitehair, which, very strange to me. I feel like that guy has no trade value. I mean, at this point, if a team could just give us a bag of chips for him, I would take it. And the last guy I did want to talk about as a potential trade candidate was left tackle Kolton Miller. And the thought process is I can understand why people are mentioning this, because the thing is, Kolton Miller, I mean, even going back to last season, he did struggle a bit. He was hit with the injury bug. This season, in the offseason, he didn't practice a lot in training camp. He didn't get those valuable reps, and it's just shown, and especially in the start of the season, that he struggled tremendously. And I just feel like he is kind of showing signs of regression. And I just haven't really seen the same progress in his development for a couple years now. I feel like when he came into the league, year in and year out, I saw a noticeable improvement. But ever since the 2022 season, I haven't really seen that. At the start of this season, he has given up some sacks. But I will say, left tackle, though, is a very tough spot to replace. And it did seem like probably the most, out of all those players I just mentioned, Kolton Miller was going to be the most difficult trade to execute, especially before the trade deadline. But it looks like they will keep Kolton Miller around at least for one more season. But one thing I will say is the Raiders do need to have a backup plan. They need to start investing and looking at that left tackle position, because Kolton Miller this season has not been cutting it. Maybe he could recover. Maybe he could start getting better if he can fully recover from that injury. I don't know if that shoulder is still bothering him, and that's the primary reason why he's been struggling. But when it comes to the NFL, it's all about what have you done for me lately. And even dating back to last season, he has been struggling. And I just haven't really seen that improvement from him. It almost feels like he's already hit his peak. And I think the Raiders would be very smart to consider drafting a left tackle in this year's draft. Like I said, looking for that replacement for a Kolton Miller. And another thing that the Raiders should seriously consider is, especially if Kolton Miller continues to struggle, I think you should sit him down for a bit, let him fully recover from that injury, and then move Thayer Munford to the left tackle position. That way you can get a full analysis on how good of a left tackle he could be for us in the future, because Thayer Munford, for the most part, he's been playing right tackle for us during his time, and I haven't really liked him when he's been out there at right tackle. But last season, after Kolton Miller went down for some games, he did play the left tackle position, and I definitely feel like he's played a lot better on the left-hand side compared to the right tackle spot. And in a season where we're 2-6 and where it's a complete wash, in my opinion, now it seems like this coaching staff believes otherwise, which I don't believe so. I think best case scenario, this team is like a 6-7 win football team. And to be honest with you, I hope we don't do that, because those are meaningless football games to win. We're not going to make the playoffs, and all we're going to be doing is be stuck in the same situation we've always been in. You're going to be right outside of the best draft picks to potentially select one of the top quarterbacks in this year's draft, and I don't really see our general manager being aggressive enough to make a big time move like that. But regardless, I would like to see Thayer Munford more at the left tackle spot. Get a full analysis of what you have in him, because if he looks solid at left tackle, that could work out really well for the Raiders. You could kind of invest as Thayer Munford to be the replacement of Kolton Miller down the road. But yeah, Raider Nation, it appears like we're not going to make any big time moves to move away any veterans before the deadline. Very interesting in my opinion, and I definitely want to get your guys' feedback in the comment section down below. Do you guys think this move could give us a sign that maybe our head coach Antonio Pierce, maybe his job is on the line? Because if his job is on the line, I can totally understand why he's not going to trade away veterans for draft picks, because those draft picks aren't going to work for him at all. They do him no good. But I definitely want to get your guys' feedback in the comment section down below. But with that being said, Raider Nation, that's all for you guys in today's video. Anybody that's new to the channel, you guys love Raider related content just like this, make sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel. That being said, I will see you guys in the next one.